really glad and proud of the team. We've been able to build a non-electric, non-invasive ventilator that's appropriate for most emerging markets. And this is not to say, this is not something that is fit for purpose in other markets. It is. If you look at the energy demand for hospitals, even here in the UK, um, you know, post COVID is massive in contrast to what it was always been prior to that. So that significance with an objective of attaining net zero by 2050 is something to consider. So I think what we've done is take a sustainable approach. So think about how do you generate the desired pressure. You could generate that pressure using electrical and mechanical processes, or you could generate that pressure using fluid dynamics, and that's the path we've gone with.
Can you share more about Shivent for those who don't know about it?
Right. So the Shivent is a non-electric, non-invasive ventilator. Myself, Dr. Yusuf, who's one of our co-founders and the chief medical officer at Shifa, along with other colleagues of mine who are PhD students at Loughborough University, came together last year following the call for ventilators to develop um, the product. We came together on the 23rd of March, and 10 weeks after that, we had a functional prototype working. We carried out functionality tests at the National Center for Exercise Medicine, for Sports and Exercise Medicine at Loughborough University, and it proved to be functional. Thereafter, we've carried out several tests in the same regard, and as much as a first phase clinical trial at Glenfield Hospital here in Leicester, and the product has met with the desired outputs. Presently, we send in 5 units to Lagos and 2 units to India to carry out first phase clinical trials in those markets. In India, we'll be carrying out functionality tests just to assess the viability of the product in the market. Of course, it's fit for purpose, but I mean, with medical products, you have regulatory approvals, which is important for the product. Hence, we're having to go through that process, and once we get the approvals that are required, we intend to go into full-fledged mass production in the markets of interest.
Can you tell more about your career trajectory? How did you end up developing Shifa Technologies with your co-founders? Where did it all begin?
So it began on the 13th of March when we went into a lockdown. So I think you'd remember Loughborough University was the first university to go into lockdown because students at the university got infected with COVID, and being home. There was my wife mentioned to me that our friend daughter had COVID. I was worried about my little daughter, who was 5 years old as well. And I said, okay, well, what could we do? I reached out to Dr. Yusuf, who had designed something similar for neonates. Back at an event I did join with him in China, Shenzhen, China, back in November 2019. And we came together and then, put up a whole new version of the product which is fit for purpose for adults. We decided to because at the time it was interesting that a lot of companies or a lot of individuals kept designing prototypes and placing them online for others to download, and definitely that's not the way you take a product to market. I bring in my experience from Panasonic, having worked as the market and life research manager, where we design products, as well as Mitsubishi, where we design large scale power and infrastructure projects. Was able to say, well, look, this is not the way to do this. If we're going to take a product to market, there's so much more that goes into it, and that's the responsibility bit, which is the essence for the regulatory approvals that the government has always required for. So we came together 10 weeks, into all that efforts. It was more of we wanted to develop a product that can be delivered to market and can serve people's needs for respiratory care where required.
And how did you go about designing the product? Did you have multiple designs and test them with your group? How did you go about it?
Yeah, that's usually how this works. So we're clear about what we want to do. We're clear about what we are clear about, and which was what we took from Dr. Yusuf's initial design, is the principles. The principles of bubble CPAP, which is continuous positive airway pressure. We understand that principle. Now, based on the principle, how you want to design that is totally up to you. And I mean, it was a busy time. We worked remotely. We over hundreds of iterations were put together to fine tune the product from the venturi to the bubbler itself to ensure it was giving the desired pressure. So yeah, it was an interesting stretch, and the thing is, I mean, even though we are very, very comfortable with the first version of the product, that's just one out of many things to come. We've done that, and there's still so much more that we're excited about doing to enhance its efficiency. One of the interesting things we've done is to digitalize the product. Now, so the question then arises: how do you digitalize a non-digital, a non-electric, product? But we understand the value of digitalization in this regard, which makes room for monitoring and assessment or for of the patient's well-being, because it's one thing to have someone on a medication, and it's the other thing to be sure that they actually responding positively, which is the essence of having this digital platform enabled. And yeah, I mean, there are really a lot of exciting things to come on the back of this. Because with data aggregation, with sampling, there's a lot to learn from human interactions, the way people breathe, the way people interact with the device. Are rooms for improvement, are equally rooms to come up with something really new to serve the market.
And I must say, so within a year, you've developed this fantastic product. I mean, could you take us through the stages involved?
Well, the first stage, and that's with doing anything, is being able to bring together a remarkable team, a team that can get the job done. You know what you're good at, but I mean, those areas where you have gaps, you have to identify, who you can bring onto the team, and that can fill that void. And I think that was the first bit. So the first on the 18th of March, that was the primary objective, bringing a team together. And how do you bring a team together? It's kind of hard, in areas where you don't have the skill sets, and you're in a lockdown. So it's not like you can call somebody who can just show up to your home the next day or show up to your office and work with you. It's quite different. So I put out a call on LinkedIn. I put out a call on the PhD community, and we opened up the conversation with everybody, and we assessed the level of contribution, the feedbacks, the inputs. And we noted that I think we had about 10, 15 people on the group, but amongst them, it was just really five of us that were leading the conversation. It was five of us that were working on the design. It was five of us looking about, around, what's possible, what's not possible, and the others were just, more spectating. So, I put a call to the team and said, look, guys, to make this worth your time, why don't we, set up a company and, have, an equal share evaluation for each and everybody, because that's when you have a valuable team, you have to give it what it takes to keep that team. And that was it. We with the company set up, the five of us being directors with share ownership in the company, there was more sense of ownership, because what followed that was we spending our money, we spending our resources, we spending our time, we spending everything we had to bring this to life. And that's important. If you've been able to build a team, you need a team that can commit, their time, their resources, their intellect, and everything they have to making, this bringing this to fruition. So that was the next phase, and the whole team over the next 10 weeks, we're committed to seeing that output, and it was COVID, and our families were like, do you want to go to the lab to carry out a functionality test in the middle of all? I mean, this is May, this is May, and in June the numbers of deaths per day was spiking to about 800, 900. So nobody wants you out. I mean, I didn't want to go out, but it was what it was. And I mean, if you ask me if I was going to do any of that again, I would love to go through that whole cycle again, because that's how you bring things to fruition. But at this phase, it's one thing to you know put a team together, develop a product, spend your money doing that, apply for grants, get that grant, get into the next phase of pilots, of piloting that product, and then we are at a phase where we know we have to prepare for the mass market. We have to now focus and think about manufacturing. We have to focus and seek to bring in the top type of investors that will be able to help us transition to that next phase that we need to get to. So it's in phases, I think. So for the first phase, put a team together, get the product, there's clarity in communication, get the product in place, validate the product to build trust with the community and the potential market you want to sell to. And I think that those three bits of getting the product to market for us has been done. And the next phase is now, regulatory approvals, and then preparing for mass manufacturing.
What advice would you give to our attendees if they were looking for funding from investors, for example?
I mean, I'm equally raising capital myself, so I wouldn't say this is the perfect advice, but it depends on what you are looking for, depends on what you are going to the market with. But I mean, the first thing investors look for, and you would look for, and anyone would look for, is the team. Everybody wants to be sure that you have a team that can deliver the value that you claim that you can deliver, right? So bringing together a team that can do just that is very, very important. And that doesn't mean you'll still have people in the market who adapt to you, but being able to bring that team together is important. And when it comes to raising capital, I mean, for us, as much as we wanted to raise capital, if we raised anything, 6 months ago, which we were actually, in a good position to raise capital, we wouldn't be able to raise the sort of capital that we desire. Capital raising has to do with value. So it's about what value have you created, that will in some form, you know, uh, justify what you're seeking. You could be seeking $1 million, and that's fine to believe you do deserve, your company deserves that. But you have to understand the metrics through which investors um, make these sorts of decisions, and be sure that you're well positioned to be asking for what you're asking for. It's one thing to have a product, it's another thing to have a consumer market to uptake that product. So you're focused on supply, but then you have to cater for demand, because your investor is not going to cater for demand for you. So if you have a potential consumer base of 100 customers, and in a market where you have 100 million consumers, they feel you have a good product. If you do have a good product, it's just that it's not there yet, right? And it's your duty to go out every day to make sure you can speak to the people you need to speak to, establish the relationships you need to establish, and convince the markets that you need to convince that you have something to serve their needs. And sometimes you have to be realistic as well. If there is a market of 100 million consumers out there, and your focus is, look, we want to be specific, this is what we do, and in this market of 100 million, our potential consumers are just 3 million, and for that 3 million consumer base, we are very sure that we can do what we want to do. Presently, we are at 100, and these are the measures we've put in place to get to, 100,000 in the next 2 years. And some investors are happy to join you on that journey, as an early startup, to make that investment if they think you have the right team, and they can, invest, in other areas to enable you achieve that. They will take that journey with you, but you need to be honest with yourself and honest with investors as to where you are and where you want to get to in your journey.
What advice would you give to someone? They feel like they've got a great idea, they've tested it, but they don't have the team with them. They don't have the funding to have the team. What advice would you give them to take their business idea to the next level?
So team has a lot to do with credibility. Team could be, two people, it could be one person, it could be three people, it could be 5 people, it could be 10 or 20 people. It has a lot to do with credibility. If you have been able to bring your idea to a pilot phase and you're credible enough as an individual to do that, then you're good enough. It's important for you to never feel less of yourself, because the market is going to demand just too much from you. So it's important for you to be, and that's why it's important to be honest as to what you can do and what you can't do and what you are able to do in the future, right? So if all you can do at this moment is just you, and it's very, very important not to be in a haste to get a co-founder if you feel you're not there yet, or if you feel you've not found the right person to be your co-founder. I've like Shifa is a good example of being able to bring together an amazing team together at once. But I've also managed other companies whereby it was just me and the business for about 2-3 years down the line before I was able to find somebody that I would call a co-founder. And sometimes you don't need a co-founder. Yeah, sometimes what you need is an employee who does the job very fine. So if you can bring them on and say, okay, look, you're not a co-founder, but I'm happy to give you, 5% shares from this amazing idea of mine. That's fine. You don't need to, the concept of a co-founder is somebody who shares that journey with you. You would find that person as you get by. It's difficult sitting back and saying, oh, well, I don't have a co-founder, I can't start. You're good enough to do whatever it is you want to do. You're good enough to lead a team if you have clarity and you know where you want to go. Sometimes you don't need to have all the skills. What people want, especially if you're working with engineers, is clarity. What do you want to do? You know exactly what you want to do. If all you understand is the principles of that process, and you can share that vision with somebody and give them the instructions they need, to do what they need to do, then that be it. But it's important anyway not to feel that you're lacking anything. If all you have is yourself, your intellect, your passion, you're 100% ready for the market. But you just you have to be honest with yourself, about where you are. You have to be honest with yourself, and think about your time as well, about what you want to do and your ability to deliver in it. If you feel you don't have the skills and you need to pull up that team, and get to market.
From our earlier discussions, I know that throughout your studies and throughout your kind of professional life, you've always had these kind of personal projects on the go. What advice would you give to students who are thinking about setting up a business, but they might think, I've got to focus on my energy on my studies? Is it possible to set up a sustainable enterprise while you're studying, or if you're working elsewhere? How do you recommend for people to really focus their energies?
I think ideas evolve in the process of activities. Ideas don't evolve when you sit back and do nothing. Ideas evolve in you being busy with something in your schoolwork. You identify something that's it's a light bulb moment, and you're like, wow. Of course you might not have thought of wanting to make a business out of it, but these things happen every day. Ideas could emanate from a frustration. You're trying to do something, and it's not just happening the way you want it, and you wanted something different. That's an idea. I mean, tech post it at 3 m. Was a frustration. He needed to write notes, and he just didn't have the right models to it. And then he eventually makes this. And who else needs a post-it at the time? You never know how many people out there share that same frustration. But it's ideas evolve from these weird places, and it's one thing for you to identify something. It's another thing for you to ask yourself honestly, is it worth pursuing or not? If you asked me to if I was going to develop an idea on post-it, I wouldn't even bother, but is it? But there's thousands of these cells today, doesn't it? But that's it. So it's an idea works for somebody. A company like 3M is happy to say, okay, well, let's put our money behind this. If we do this for our team and it's working in our team, and the company has value for it, they are big enough as a consumer themselves. So it makes financial sense for a company like 3M to say, this is how we want. This is a company culture. This is what we're going to be doing going forward. That's 3M. They have the funding. They can do that. But not everybody can do that because there's a cost to this processes. So your ideas will emanate from your activities, which will emanate from your conversations, it will emanate from your daily routines, it will emanate from your schoolwork, it will emanate from your commutes, anything from your from your breaks, lunch moments, any moment in the day where you find frustrations or where you find that processes can be improved are where your ideas will emanate from. So I would say when those moments come, have a notebook, you know, note it down and think deeply about it. Think about the process, think about how you'd like to see it happen. And that's where originality comes in, because a lot of the time when you look at somebody else's concept and say, oh, I like that, I think I can do that. What you don't understand is that you don't understand what you're looking at. Someone's idea is their idea 100%, because the way they think about it and what has inspired them to do that is totally different from what inspires you to do the same thing you're doing. You would not know, you might not know immediately that it's different, because you might feel, okay, well, I'm just going to do the same thing. But down the line, as the idea evolves, it brings to birth everything else they've thought about when they thought about that idea, which you've not thought about. And that's where you're going to lose out. So you know, being original with your idea, and being open-minded to learn about how markets work, and now about how you could fashion your product to serve that market is very, very important. And that's basically all I think evolves around ideation and nurturing ideas and concepts.
Fantastic. I'd like to welcome our attendees to share more questions in the chat box. I can continue asking numerous questions. I know we have limited time here. My other question is, what do you feel are the sustainability trends that are shaping Africa, well, specifically business in Africa?
So Africa has unfortunately had an infrastructural gap for years, and one of the things that seems to be at the forefront of that today is solar energy and renewable energy options, where everyone is thinking about, okay, how can you do this much more sustainably, and looking at different ways to adopt the use of these technologies to serve the need of the market. But I think that's one place, and that's primarily evidence, and that should give us a reason to think beyond that. Um, One of the areas that I would love to see more happen is in the area of um, low energy manufacturing, and I'm not talking about just textile. I'm talking about some sort of hardware. There's a dire need for Africa to transition to a manufacturing hub that manufactures what it consumes, whether it's the food, from its agricultural processes, or whatever device that's out there. They need Africa, and African countries, especially those within the affected region, need to be able to position themselves to pick on these ideas and build solutions that are worthy, and can serve the market. Um, I I I mentor a few sustainable businesses in Africa. One of those very interesting ones is a company that has built a breathable block. So you know how you have heat islands in cities and urban areas where the whole floor is made of concrete, and you don't really have that air exchange between the soil and its environment, because it's you have a tight concrete above it. She's developed a whole different type of block which costs less than what the present blocks in the market go for, and it's breathable. She's designing a whereby it can make room for air exchange, and this sort of ideas are important, for Africans, to because these are everyday problems that you would identify, either in studies or research, and there's always something you can do about it. But manufacturing is important, and that's an area where whatever it is you're doing, if it's hardware, software, whatever it is, to think around how to enable those processes. It's the most of the products that come into the Nigerian to the African market, sometimes, unfortunately, 90% of its value chain is foreign, which means the production of that product is foreign. The job created, was created in a different market. The tax was paid in a different market. This sort of economic imbalance is not going to help Africa grow to be a valuable contributor to the global marketplace. And I think it's a sort of sustainable development that should be given more attention to going forward.
Thank you so much, Yusuf, for sharing more on what you're doing and sharing your thoughts on sustainability in Africa. So again, thank you for everyone for joining us today. Thank you to Yukodabo. Unfortunately, she had to leave earlier. And we really do hope that you enjoyed our webinar series focusing on sustainable development in Africa, specifically entrepreneurship. We will be back later on this July with a hackathon. We'll be sharing much more with you a bit later on. And I'd like to hand over to Marie.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, Yusuf. It was really great to hear about your experience and your business. And I guess we really hope to hear more about the process of delivering your items in Nigeria and India, and how that works on those in those countries and on the continent. For us, we're really looking forward to the hackathon. So as Farida said, we'll be sending out more information, but please do check out our website and connect with us online. We're on LinkedIn and on all the social medias as well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Fabulous. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.